Do you believe that the American dream is alive and well? I do. I've been to 23 countries, some of them multiple times. And I'm telling you, this is the best place on earth. Does it have its problems? Yeah, it does. But let me tell you, there's no utopia. All right? No utopia. And there never will be. But this place is amazing, all right? And it has so much opportunity for you to be successful. If you are not successful in America, it is because of you. I promise you. So get over yourself, heal, and move forward into your future and be successful. And you can do it in 1 generation or less by owning, purchasing, acquiring, and holding just a few rental properties. So join me as we walk into our next portion about money and get the education you need in order to perform. Sometimes we get held back because we have preconceived notions or a lot of chatter just floating around in our heads from, family or friends or coworkers or programs that we watch or Instagram followers. And it confuses us. And part of this process that we're walking through here together in this fireside conversation is about setting those realistic expectations so you can be laser focused and perform on purchasing your rental property. One of the holdups that sometimes hold people back I have seen is they are expecting a 10% cash on cash return. This is also sometimes known as a 10% cap rate or capitalization rate. Believe it or not, capitalization rate is not a term we use on an anecdotal day-to-day practice of residential real estate investing. That is typically a commercial real estate term. And if you work for hedge funds or real estate investment trusts or Wall Street, you are using those terms. But when you're buying a $250,000 to $350,000 rental property, don't get caught up in that talk, all right? I'm not saying it has no value. But what I'm saying is you need to learn to delineate and discern what information is important so you can stay focused and move forward. So 10% cash on cash returns, which means you're going to make 10% cash return on your money, your down payment that you put in the property. So if you put $50,000 down on the property, a 10% cash on cash return means you're going to make $5,000, that's 10% on $50,000 every year in cash flow. Here's the reality of that. In DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, our market, not really true. Most major markets in the United States, that's not true. It used to be true in the 80s. Absolutely, but that's just not really realistic. And you don't need to worry about that for your first investment property. That's going to hold you back. All right. Now, like I said in the beginning, there are many ways to do this. This is a way we've learned to do this. Okay. This is a way I use when I invest personally. All right. I'm looking for a break even cash on cash return. And I'm very conservative on my numbers when I analyze what my expenses are when I purchase a property. Okay. So I'm very conservative. And my numbers include things to go wrong, property management, vacancy, repairs, how many times we're going to replace the carpet over a 10-year period, et cetera. And once you put all that in, you're not going to get a 10% cash on cash return. If you're buying a property that's listed on market, remember that means on the MLS, don't worry about that. We just want to at least break even. All right. Okay. Now let's talk about balance sheet versus income statement rich. I learned about this about 10 or 12 years ago when I was reading a book called The Millionaire Mind by Thomas Stanley. That book taught me so much on money. I learned about balance sheets and income statements. Okay. What a balance sheet is your assets minus your liabilities equals net worth. All right. That might feel a little overwhelming. It doesn't need to be. Let me rephrase it so you understand. An asset is something I own that has value. Real estate is always an asset. Now, you might have a liability against that asset. A liability is a loan, okay? So if the home is worth $350,000 and you have a loan for $300,000, that means you have $50,000 of equity, which is also equivalent to the term called net worth, okay? What am I worth as far as my assets are concerned, okay? That's called balance sheet, all right? Income statement is what is my income coming in every month, all right? How much revenue is being brought in, all right? And then minus my expenses, right? Which are typically on a monthly basis, sometimes annually, but typically monthly, especially in rental property investing. And what is the net income of that? All right. We always want that number to be at least zero or more as far as our rental property income statement is concerned, but also on your personal income statement as well. That goes back to that FIRE principle, financially independent, retire early, that we were talking about earlier. Okay. Making more than you spend by a lot, not a little bit, a lot. Remember, live like a pauper a little bit to live like a king or queen forever. And so you really want to understand balance sheets and income statements. When in doubt, read the book. It's a great book. And then go on to read another book he made called The Millionaire Next Door. That one's a little more storytelling-ish, where the millionaire mind is a little more astute. But you can do it. You have the ability to learn about money in the right way. Let's talk about the time value of money, TVM. This is unbelievable, okay? As time goes on and you don't make investments, your money is going to stay stagnant, all right? It actually could possibly decrease, sort of, in a way, because your money won't grow at the rate of inflation if it's sitting in a savings account making nothing. Now, some markets, remember earlier we talked about the economic cycle? So based on the economic cycle, there's different times when savings accounts pay money. Typically, when interest rates are high, savings account rates are high as well. When interest rates are low, savings account interest rates are low. But the time value of money is key, and it allows you to not go on in years and not make investments, okay? So that also ties back to when is the right time to invest? Remember, it depends. It's always good to invest because in time, your money is going to make money. It just will. But what time value of money is in a specific way is it's the key component that gets eclipsed by talk of cash flow and cap rates. But it's the main reason that Warren Buffett created the wealth he has. You see, he started compounding money when he was a small boy. Let me ask you a question. If you compound anything for 75 years, don't you think it's going to work? Yeah, it is. Like guaranteed. And we have a saying here at our firm. We say the key to getting ahead is getting started. All right. And that's just the bottom line. So action is always imperative. And time value of money is a variable that works kind of in the quantum level of things, where it just kind of does its thing over time and it builds you money. And real estate is always an asset which you can be guaranteed will be successful. It's just a function of time. So if you're able and willing to adjust on the time of how you hold your asset, your real estate asset, you're always going to win. So we say it's sexy to break even on rent. Use that as a term when you need a rebuttal for your friends that tell you you need to get a 10% cap rate. Don't let that hold you back from just beginning. So why real estate? Well, real estate is the only asset on earth that I'm aware of where you can get OPM, other people's money, on a long-term fixed interest rate in an easy way. That's called a mortgage, a bank loan. You know, what other asset? Can you buy art like that? Can you buy stock like that? Can you buy a car like that? No, you can't use a 30-year loan at a fixed low interest rate with a low percent down to buy any of those other assets. It's incredible. And once you start to understand how debt works in a healthy way, not an unhealthy way, but a healthy way to build your balance sheet, everything changes with your relationship with healthy debt. I assure you, it did for me. So if I'm telling you, you're not going to make money on a cash flow basis, why would you even do this? Well, there's 4 ways to make money in rental property investing. So number 1, cash flow. I'm going to go back to that because on day 1, are you going to make cash flow? Probably not. So why would you invest in real estate if I'm telling you you're not going to make money in cash flow? Well, eventually you will. But what I want to do is be honest with you and prepare you that you might not on day 1. And don't let that hold you up from becoming balance sheet rich, from becoming the American dream wealthy. So you can use your wealth to build your generational accomplishment for your family and raise up the next generation of your family than the way you were raised. That's every family and parent's wish. I know it is. So you will make cash flow, but it's not today. Probably. Prepare for that. If you do, that's gravy, but you need to be prepared that you won't. But there are 4 ways to make money in rental property investing. Cash flow is 1. Equity or appreciation is the other. It's synonymous. It's a term that's used interchangeably, okay? The property will appreciate, all right? For example, in Dallas-Fort Worth, on average, the average appreciation is about 3% per year, all right? You can work that up or down. We suggest that. That's pretty conservative. If you were to look at the inflation calculator for the United States, you would see on average, it's about 3% per year. Some years are a little more, some years are a little less. But again, we're looking at a 10-year term here minimum for your first rental property before you liquidate. That's about the term you need to set up for. So over that time, 3% per year would give you a good equity understanding, all right? Appreciation. And then you have your mortgage pay down is the 3rd way. The mortgage pay down. If you have a mortgage, if you pay cash, obviously this won't apply to you. But reality is most people, especially buying their first rental property, you likely will have a mortgage. So the tenant is going to pay down that mortgage for you using their rent, okay? And that's why cash flow doesn't really matter that much, because you're having a huge asset that is growing in appreciation that you're taking a loan out in order to purchase, and the tenant's paying the mortgage down. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then the 4th way, tax strategy, okay? This is super cool, this one. All right, most of you guys I know have jobs. You're a W-2, right? Well, this is about teaching you how to think like an entrepreneur, all right? That's the key. You're becoming an entrepreneur, right? The tax strategy for the United States IRS tax code was written for people just like you, entrepreneurs, all right? Now, are you going to be able to take full opportunity of the tax strategy and the tax code as a W-2 employee owning one rental property? No. But what you're going to do is you're going to start inserting what we call the 10% mindset. So you're going to take away 10% of your mind and you're going to invest it into 10% of being an entrepreneur. All right. And you're going to do that every year as you grow. So by the time you get to the end of that 10 years that we were talking about to get you through a full economic cycle, you're going to be fully in the entrepreneurial mindset. All right. And tax strategy is an awesome tool. Let me just wrap by telling you one key element on thinking about taxes in a new way. This is how I learned it. What is the biggest expense that you have? What do you think? Is it your car payment? Is it your mortgage? Is it your wife? Your kids? I would argue it's your taxes, your income taxes, your property taxes, your sales taxes. If you live in one of the states without a state income tax, it might be that as well. So all of your taxes, I would argue, is probably your biggest expense. So when I learned that, everything changed for me. And I wanted to get educated, and I wanted to connect with those that were educated and build a team around understanding that in a deeper way. And we're going to get to that a little more when we get to the team module, because it's very important. But tax strategy is the fourth element of how to make money in rental property investing. And this is your one-on-one course in understanding to focus on your taxes. Being a business owner helps you do that and gives you the opportunity to really maximize an opportunity in that you could not as a business owner.